Right to be Read podcast, episode number 71. Interview with Jesse Krieger. Are you struggling trying to figure out how to sell copies of your book, especially the first 100 copies? The Author Marketing Institute is offering access to their latest free video course called Selling the First 100 Copies of Your Book. This is the course everyone should have when they started publishing. It goes through all the basics from starting a mailing list to experimenting with different prices. If you follow the instructions in this course, you should be primed and ready to sell your first 100 copies, if not many more. Sign up for free at www.authormarketinginstitute.com.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast. I'm Ani Alexander, and as always, with every single episode, I'm trying to encourage and inspire you. So today we will be having another interview, but before we get there, I would like to share with you about something very special we've been working on. What I have in mind is a free live webinar which will be taking place on February 18th. And I strongly encourage you to save that date and to register to the webinar because it will help you discover how to use the power of podcasting to gain audience, get in front of avid readers, and sell more books in just 7 easy steps. And the good news is that you can start straight away. You don't need to have a prior podcasting experience or anything. And what's special about this is that this webinar was created especially for my audience, and that is you, the Right to be Read podcast listeners. And the content was specifically created in order to provide actual value and respond to all the struggles and challenges you're having right now. Another special element of this is that the webinar will be held by Meron Barakat from the Podcast Incubator. And Meron, for those of you who haven't heard about him, he's actually my personal podcasting guru because just 3 weeks before I launched Right to be Read podcast, I knew nothing about podcasting, and everything I've learned from him. Okay, so save the date of February 18th and go to register for the free webinar, which I'm absolutely sure that will be completely valuable and will not waste your time. So the webinar page is at www.anialexander.com/webinar. Just hop over there, register, and make sure that you don't miss this really great opportunity. Once again, www.anialexander.com/webinar. Okay, and let me now introduce my today's guest. Today, I will be talking to Jesse Krieger. Jesse is the best-selling author of the book called Lifestyle Entrepreneur, and I think that he knows exactly what he wrote about because in real life, he himself is a lifestyle entrepreneur too. Hello, Jesse, and thank you so much for coming over. Welcome to the Right to be Read podcast.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we finally made it. You know, the time difference is quite a challenge for me. So I'm really glad that
I appreciate you staying up late to talk to me.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it. You know, I'm kind of shifting to the US time zone periodically, so it's fine.
That's great.
Okay, so let's start with the following. I know that you're a lifestyle entrepreneur and you're making money doing what you love, but has it been like this always, or you were one of those who had those boring day jobs and which they didn't like, etc., etc.? What was your story?
Yeah, sure. Starting out, I never even imagined I'd go into business. When I was young, I was really I played guitar and I was in rock bands, and all I really cared about was music. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until my early 20s, like I think at age 21, I decided to really get serious about having music as a career to start our own record label. And so my bandmate and I formed a record label for our band, and that's how I started learning business, sort of like through the filter of this passion of mine, which was music. Mm-hmm. And so honestly, I never even really started down this traditional path, or I feel very fortunate that there's never really been a time where I've, been doing a job or work that I hate. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's always been easy. There's been tons of times when I've tried things and they haven't worked, or, running out of money, trying to make your business grow, or any other number of problems that come with any entrepreneurship endeavor. But I'd rather have those problems than wake up dreading, to get out of bed because I don't want to go to a job or do something I don't enjoy.
Okay, so you were one of those lucky ones who avoided that part completely.
Well, I mean, honestly, there is some luck involved in it, but it's also, I'm very strong-willed in some respects. Like, I more or less insisted that that I was not going to have, a corporate job. Uh-huh. So I'd say 1 part luck and 3 parts determination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So what happened next? Because actually, most of us don't know you as a rock star. So something happened in between.
Well, it's funny. I mean, the first thing I write about in my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, is all about identity. And I feel like I've had a number of different identities in my adult life, from musician and touring rock guitarist to, investment banker and international business consultant to startup entrepreneur and now author and publisher. So I sort of move from one thing to another as I get interested or discover a new field or industry that I'm, intrigued by. And then ultimately I find that business becomes the best lever or the best tool to understand a new field or a new industry. Mm-hmm. So when I think about entrepreneurship, it's never just like random. It's not just like pointing at a list of industries and saying, oh, I think I'll go into, promotional products. There's some other reason that ties into the identity piece. Anyways, we could talk about business forever, but ultimately, after doing a number of different startups and founding and co-founding businesses in my 20s, I was like, I should ask myself what my process is and then write it down. And that became the basis for my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, which sort of set me down this path of first being an author and then a best-selling author. But now, having published other authors, and I'm working on a next book, and I have an author training program. So you can see how, getting interested in books and writing a book became a doorway into so many other mm-hmm. avenues of business within that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. And do you think that entrepreneurship is really linked to the personality of someone, and that there are some people who are more inclined and more suited to become successful entrepreneurs, and there are some who won't? Does anyone who would like to quit his job is kind of not eligible, but capable to become an entrepreneur, you think?
Well, I want to say yes. I mean, I think there are people that are more inclined towards being entrepreneurs, but I think anybody is capable of it. We all have the skills to, it's basically a creative process the way I see it. It's having an idea and taking that idea and turning it into something real, and then getting other people to interact with it by buying it or, taking part in a program. So it really just becomes a creative process, and everybody's capable to do that. Now, is everybody willing to take the risk of leaving something that's secure or pushing their comfort zone? Because ultimately you have to grow a lot as a person in order to grow your business. Mm-hmm. And not everybody's willing to do that. So everybody's able to. Everybody's capable, but not everybody's willing, is what I would say. Okay,
I see. And what about, let's say, if people who are writing books, let's say, but they're not doing it professionally and they work full-time somewhere else. How do you see, like, what can be the potential transition they can make later on towards, like, becoming a full-time writers, or maybe even making money somewhere else in order to kind of free themselves and have more time to write, like, I don't know, passive income streams, or what can be like their escape route possibly?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I mean, it's a good question, and it touches on sort of the elephant in the room, which is, can you really make money as an author? And the answer is yes, but. And so it's yes, it's possible, of course. There's many successful authors, but then there's many, many more who don't make very much money at all from writing a book, even if it does well. And there's a number of reasons for that. One of them would be if you work with a publisher and you're only getting 10% of the amount that your book sells for. And if you don't sell a lot of books, even if you do well, you still may not make any money, right? But then if you self-publish, you could sell a lot of books and keep 70% of it if you sell it by yourself through Amazon. Even if you sell a lot of books there, you still won't make a ton of money. So how do you actually make a living as an author? It's actually something I've focused on a lot, and is one of the topics of my forthcoming book, which is all about how to use your book to build a business and brand around it. So in other words, the experience I had with Lifestyle Entrepreneur was, I wrote the book and it did become a bestseller in a couple of different countries. But the part where I actually made money was the book becomes the basis for a business training program I do. And I have business coaching clients that I worked with after the book came out. And I put together, an audio training program, and then a number of other things, webinars and joint ventures. So the book became like the doorway to all the possibilities to make money that are related to the book, but it's not necessarily making a lot of money just from selling a lot of books, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we can say that the book is like just one part of the whole business puzzle, and it's the entry point where you use this book as a business card to lead to somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say the book is like the hook. Your book is your hook. So your book is, somebody could read it, and somebody could read a book and get a lot out of it, and great, right? But some people read a book and then they're like, I want to do more. And so if you have an opportunity for people to do more with you, or with a business, or with something that you've set up for people that have read your book, then it creates a possibility to build a real business on it. So this works with, like business books, with how-to books, with self-help books, if you're going to do like life coaching and things like that. It doesn't work. I mean, I won't say it doesn't work. I don't have experience doing it with like fiction or biography or history books. So again, we're talking about a certain kind of book here that lends itself to this model. But I think there's, maybe someday I'll explore how this could work for other types of books too.
I see. So let's say, how did it go? I mean, you wrote the book and later on created the other components of the business, like the trainings and the coachings, etc. Or the book brought the demand and people started connecting to you, and then you saw that there is the need and created those. How did it go? Which one came first? Which second?
It was sort of both. It was a combination of both, but really, I sort of knew when I was getting ready to publish Lifestyle Entrepreneur that I did want to do business training and coaching, and I had done this before. I had a book too, but I wanted it to be based around, the type of business I'm talking about in my book. And so, I mean, really, I created I created like an audio training program, but I just did that without getting any input from readers, really. But when I really started to interact with readers and figure out what they wanted to learn and do and experience, that was when I created a weekend program called Business in a Weekend. And I've taught that live to people in over 20 countries from from the same microphone I'm talking into now. So, like, I ran this as an online webinar-based training for a whole weekend, and people could take part in it from anywhere, right? So, at something like that, where the price is like $497 for a weekend training course, well, you'd have to sell hundreds of books, right, to make that same amount. And so that just shows the difference in earning potential. That everybody could have read the book that's in the program, but just a few people that read the book that take a program actually generates a decent amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you exactly link those together? Let's say you're having the book which is selling and is selling very well. How are the readers, how do they know what else they can get and how they can get in touch with you? Do you include it in the book somehow? How did you incorporate those together?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Is that one of the... So yes, is the answer. I mean, if in the introduction to my book at the end, I say, hey, connect with me. Here's my email. Let me know what you learned from this book. And then I also give a link to my blog. The blog has information, it's got a bunch of great articles and resources. And then it also has information on the different programs and trainings. And then in the back of the book, after all of the book, I have 3 different pages that describe the products and programs that I have available. So it's like, I think this is an important point. That the book itself is not a marketing tool. Like, sure, I make a mention in the introduction and at the end of the book, but it's not like every single page I'm explaining an idea and then I say, learn more about this in my program. That's not the point of the book. The book stands on its own as a useful resource, but then you also do include the mentions and the just giving the opportunity for people to select into doing more with you as the author.
Okay, I see. And now let's just touch this point. I think that since we're talking business now, and I think even with fiction authors, the author is kind of entrepreneur himself, because especially the self-published authors are kind of entrepreneurs, and they are also personal brands, which they have to kind of, address and market and establish that brand, first of all. So how one addresses this issue? Let's say we have someone who's just starting, so he doesn't really have any audience in place, and he's starting from scratch. What are like the first steps and the first elements that he should have in place to set everything up in the very beginning?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. So when I look at, for example, okay, I'll use my forthcoming book as an example here, right? I have a book that's coming out called The Big Idea, Build a Book-Based Business and Brand. So it's basically about how to use a book like we're describing to be the foundation for a business. And so when I started writing the book, I said, okay, how am I going to structure this content? So the big idea, the word idea, is actually what I call a content framework, right? So it's IDEA, and it stands for Ignite, Develop, Execute, and Accelerate Your Best-Selling Book Launch. So as a way to start, I recommend starting with the core idea of your book. I mean, the core concept of your book, right? And structure that in a content framework. It doesn't have to spell a word. But you've seen other things like this, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Right? Even the title tells you, there's going to be 7 things in this book that are going to help me be more effective. So then once you know what those 7 things are, then you just have to write it in order to create the core content for your book. Or, there's other things like price, product, promotion, and people, right? Or there's all these other things that are either start with the same letter or 7 this or 5 of that, or a content framework like the big idea. These are all ways to start generating, content, but also a way to create an outline before you start writing. Because it's very daunting to sit down and look at a blank piece of paper and be like, okay, what am I going to write my book about?
Yeah, it is.
So if you instead think like, okay, what are some areas of, what do I want to write about? And then how can I structure that in a way that, the book will flow and make sense before you start writing the actual content itself. So that's how I recommend getting started, is get the overarching concept like clear in your mind.
Okay, I see. And many advise that one should start marketing the book at the same point or even before he starts writing the book itself. What's your approach about this?
Not before you start writing the book, especially if it's your first book, because how are you going to know what you're marketing if you're still in the creation process? But I would say if you're a little experienced, or if you've written a book before, then you understand how much time each step of the process takes, and then you could market, definitely do a lot of marketing before the book comes out. But I'd say first focus on start writing and getting something great.
And completing the book.
Yeah, or knowing if you're like 80% complete, then it's like, okay, let's start thinking about the marketing, and the timing will all line up by the time, book launch day comes around. But it's more important to focus on creating a great book than it is to do tons and tons of marketing, long time in advance. If the book is really good, then once it's out, you can market it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Lifestyle Entrepreneur's been out for 2 years, and I'm doing this is my second or third interview this week on it. So a book has a lifespan that can stretch for years and years. So my advice then is not to focus on marketing as much as creating a great book that people will want to read and talk about for years to come.
Okay, I see. Well, let's say someone created a book, which is a good one. Well, if it's the first one, it won't be great, but it's a good, decent book with the professional cover, professionally edited, and with a great message, etc. So all works well. They kind of did the homework and came up with a good book. But later on, they self-publish it on Amazon and, check their statistics and don't really see much sales. And those which they have kind of dry out with the time. And the writer gets discouraged. So what can he do in order to kind of revive the thing and get some results and, save the situation, let's say?
Well, it's interesting because just like we were just talking about, since books do have such a long life, some books, if you go back into history, like Aristotle and Plato, books can be around for thousands of years, right? Mm-hmm. So don't worry if, 1 week your book's in a chart and then the next week it's not in a bestseller list. You can do a new promotion and get it back up there. It's like there's so many different platforms for like book marketing and promotions that once you start looking around and finding other authors that have that focus on the same topics, and start to look at who's doing, book-related promotions in this industry or this field, then start becoming a part of those. Like, I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I know that won't be yesterday when you're listening to this, but yesterday for me, Lifestyle Entrepreneur was part of a promotion where 15 different books on entrepreneurship were all on sale for 99 cents each.
Was it Buck Books?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did Buck Books yesterday. And so the idea is, 15 authors are all promoting this event. Plus, Buck Books has hundreds of other people that promote their events anyways, and then they have a mailing list of like 30,000 people. So the whole idea is you don't have to do it all alone. If you're part of a promotion like this, then you're getting exposure to tens of thousands of people. And yeah, that's going to drive books. I was number 3 entrepreneurship book on all of Amazon for most of yesterday. And that's amazing, right? The book's like 2 years old, but you do a new promotion and boom, back up the charts you go. So I'd always just tell authors that, it's a long game, it's a marathon, mm-hmm. and keep looking at different opportunities and basically just do everything. Like I will happily be on podcasts and guest articles or whatever talking about my book because I'm passionate about it. And because I know that if I do 50 podcasts, then, eventually I'll reach tens of thousands of people, and that all helps. So there's so many different ways to get out there, especially with everything available on the internet now. And there's no excuse to not have success with your book if you're willing to put in the work and show up consistently and put in the effort.
Yeah, well, this makes me think that entrepreneurship and being a self-published author are really close in terms that if you want to succeed in both cases, you have to hustle.
Yeah, yeah, that's like a truism, right? It's because say you're starting a company or say you're writing a book. If you don't sit down and write, then nothing's getting done. So until you've got a team, until you've got a proper business with people working with you and so forth, yeah, you definitely have to hustle, because if you don't, who will? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one will do it for you, apparently, at least.
People will do it for you if you pay them, but then you got to pay them.
Yeah, which is kind of, not always the preferred option.
Yes.
And not many, especially the newbie writers, can't really afford these quite expensive services.
Well, so, let's touch on that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people, I hear that a lot, and my experience is that you can get, for example, a great editor for $300 or so. You can get a great looking book cover design for $300, $400 using the sites like 99designs.com, and I use elance.com all the time to hire and manage different people. So it doesn't have to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to get something that's great. It just requires putting in that extra effort to really find good designers and spend the time to work with editors and so forth, so that everything looks the way you want. And it doesn't have to break the bank, I guess. Hopefully that's the good news.
Yeah, well, that's really a good news. And I think that the things you mentioned, like the editor and the cover, those are the elements which are not less important, if not even for the very beginning to attract the attention, even more important than the content itself. Because if those are not good, then people won't really get attracted to the book and not even try to get and read it. And if they don't, then no matter what brilliant ideas you have there and how well it's written, no one will know, right?
Yeah. It's a funny thing that you could spend so much time writing a book. There's faster ways to do it too, but let's say that you spend months and months to write a book, and then you're finally done. You're like, I did it. I finished my book, right? Now, okay, let's publish it. And you think that, wow, you just completed this big journey, but that's actually the beginning of the next journey, which is getting people's attention. Because here's the thing, right? When you're just focusing on writing your own book, and this is true for me too, right? You're focusing very closely on just this one book. So you're looking at it in a vacuum. But in the market, right, for the business side of books and promotion, your book has to exist alongside thousands of other books, right? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And so you've got to market, or else you'll be drowned out, or just you won't even be visible with everything else that's going on. And so, that's just, I guess, reaffirms what you mentioned. But yeah, it's just the hustle all around. And that's just sort of the price to realize your dream of being, a top-selling author and touching people's lives with your work.
Yeah, well, you are working with authors and helping them come up with bestsellers, right?
Yes, correct. So, yeah, we have an 8-week author training program that we're just getting close to the end of now. We've got close to 100 authors going through this, and it just describes the whole process of finishing a great-looking book to doing a pre-launch campaign and building your presence online, and then how to actually do the launch and hit bestseller lists, and then finally how to transition that into growing a back-end business. So there's It's the IDEA is the same thing that my book is about, is the same way that we built the training. So IDEA, ignite, develop, execute, and accelerate your book launch. And that's the bestseller campaign blueprint training.
Okay, so do you think that what you teach is kind of applicable for everyone? So it's like, there is some kind of formula that if one follows, he will eventually end up with a bestseller? Or there are some other valuables along that as well?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you're going to self-publish and you're going to do it on Amazon, let's say, if you're willing to spend some money on advertising and marketing, you can more or less ensure yourself of getting on some bestseller list. But the straight path to becoming a bestseller is market and promote it with advertising and literally, drive people to your website and to your book site, and launch it in that way. And so, it's not, if you're a published author, you still have to promote your book because a publisher's job isn't to market it. And so, I guess basically the point here is that if you want to be an author like full time as a career, then you should just sort of accept that a large part of that is doing marketing, doing interviews, getting out and interviewing other people, doing all these different media approaches, from maybe starting a podcast or doing a blog, whatever is going to fit the content of your book right and serve your audience the best. Mm-hmm. That's where you should be spending like hours a day focusing on it once the book is done and out there.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, since you have this experience working with authors, do you know why authors kind of somehow, I don't know the reason, but somehow they perceive marketing as something really bad?
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. That was my question. Why do they perceive? Because many people say, I'm a writer. I don't want to market. I'm not a business person. I'm not a pushy salesman. Things like that, which sound kind of negative, because marketing itself, I don't see it as something negative. I just see it as part of a business. And if you're a self-published author, then you're a businessman, and the book is your product. So I don't know. I mean, do you know where does this negative approach come towards the marketing thing? Because many kind of avoid it because they think it's not something good to do.
Well, yes. I mean, look, I'm very familiar with this phenomenon, and I have a couple of feelings on it. I mean, okay, let me put it this way. Nobody loves being sold, but everybody loves to buy. It's sort of the first rule of selling, right? Nobody wants marketing. When people think of marketing in a bad way, they think, oh my God, somebody new is trying to sell me something, right? Well, everybody's trying to sell everybody something, whether it's a product or an idea. We're all in the game of persuasion and selling, and, that's sort of how business works. But if you are not confident in your book, or if you have a self-esteem issue and saying, who am I to promote my book, and who am I to, take a stand on these issues in my book? Well, then your career might be very short, because people that are confident and believe in their work are going to outrun you by embracing the fact that marketing is really part of. It's not marketing if you're talking about the ideas in your book and how they can help people's lives. That's not marketing. That's, I don't know, teaching or sharing or training. And then if you do that and it makes an impact, then somebody's going to be interested in getting your book, and not just your book, but everything else that you have available too. So the marketing doesn't have to be like, hey, buy my book. Hey, buy my book. It's more like something like this, right? Where you have a conversation about the ideas and strategies and perspectives in the book, or about being an author. And then some people are going to be interested, and those people are the ones that you want to focus even more on, because they're your readers, and then they're your clients, and then they're, maybe your joint venture partners one day. Mm-hmm. So I just see it as part of a long progression. Like the people I used to look up to and go to their seminars and learn from, right? I pay to attend their seminars. Now I'm partnering with them and soon, developing products or doing a book launch for them. So as long as you keep showing up and you like pay attention to what's going on in your industry and always try and add value to other people, then eventually you get opportunities. And when you get those opportunities, then you got to hustle at those opportunities. But eventually you look around and you're like, oh wow, I'm not just starting out anymore, right? If you do this for a year, for 2 years, then you're going to meet a lot of people in your field, and some of them will resonate with you. And those become the ones that you focus on. Just keeping in mind that, most things don't work out. Most ideas don't become a real book or a business. And so it's always about, finding what's working and doubling down on that and cutting your losses on whatever is not. Mm-hmm. But that's starting to get into a new subject.
Well, you mentioned, we spoke about writing and then we spoke about marketing. And I have a feeling that many authors kind of can't really find the optimal balance in between those two, because I have a feeling that many concentrate on either writing or marketing and kind of, tend to once you're focused more on one side, the other side suffers. So how can one kind of, find this ultimate sweet spot and balance between those two?
Well, I think as a starting point, it's important, like we were talking about before, that you don't mix the marketing and writing part so much that your book just becomes a marketing brochure. Mm-hmm. Right. There's a time when you have to just not think about marketing, not think about anything else really. Just think about what's the best way I can present these ideas in a book form, and how can I structure the book and the content so that it really helps people and really makes an impact. Say, okay, now you've got some of that. Now you can shift your attention and say, okay, now where are the people that are my perfect readers? Where are the people that these ideas are going to really make an impact on? And then the marketing becomes, how do you get your book in front of those people? And so there is a line. It's usually not where we think it is in terms of what's the dividing line between writing and marketing. The reality is probably 20 or 30% writing and 70 or 80% marketing to really make a career out of it. And I can tell you that that's true, because long after I finished writing my book, I'm still doing promotions and things to this day, but I don't look at it as a bad thing at all. I love these opportunities to speak with people and talk about ideas, and these are the things I'd want to be talking about anyway. So I think of it as fun. Mm-hmm. Instead of like, oh God, now I have to go do marketing, this horrible thing that I don't like doing. Well, you know what? A lot of times, here's an analogy for authors. You live into your own story. And so if your story is, I don't like marketing, I hate doing marketing, well then yeah, you're going to hate it when you do marketing, or even more likely is you just won't do marketing because you think you're going to hate it. But if you take the opposite approach, you're like, I'm so happy with this book, I'm so in love with these ideas, and I know they can really help people. I got to go out and share it with as many people as possible. In fact, I feel it's my duty to get out and share this because I don't want to just keep it to myself. Well, that's a whole different approach to really the same thing, marketing, finding the people that are going to love your book and getting it in front of them. But it's a different approach. It's one that comes from a sense of like purpose and almost obligation to share it.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. And usually I'm asking question about the first book and the newbie writers, but this time I would kind of rephrase it and make it a bit different with you. So let's say, let's take my example. My example is a very vivid one to show that once you stop marketing efforts, everything dries out. So I have 2 best-selling books on Amazon, which did very well, and they were number one bestsellers in several categories. Both of them fiction. One was a book of short stories, and the other one was a novel. And later on, I kind of, I had many different other projects, etc. So I kind of completely stopped promoting those. And eventually, now they are not selling at all, because for about a year, I haven't touched anything about that, and I haven't promoted it even on this podcast. So let's say someone is in that kind of situation. How do you kind of revive things? Where do you start? What you should do? Do you do a complete relaunch, or do you put it away from Amazon and republish, or what do you do in these situations?
I mean, I definitely do a relaunch, and when I say a relaunch, I mean create some event around it. Like, with Amazon in particular, you can do those free giveaway days up to 5 days out of every 3 months. Mm-hmm. So, a great way to relaunch and get some new attention is create some event around a day when you're going to make your book available for free or at a big discount. And then promote the heck out of it. So do a live hangout or do a webinar. Invite people to hang out and talk to them, answer questions, teach about your topic. But really, set the book to be available for free or at a discount and promote it. Promote it to your email list. Get joint venture partners to mail out for it. Run Facebook ads and drive all of the attention around building your list, reaching new people, and driving more book sales. And that's a great way to pop it back onto the charts, because once it's back on a chart, then it'll get exposed to 4 to 5 times the number of people mm-hmm. that you. So, for example, if I send 100 people and I say, okay, all 100 of these people, I'm going to send them to Amazon and they're going to download my book. Okay, so I know that there's 100 downloads, but then once that happens, if that gets me onto some chart, I'll end up selling 200, 300, maybe even more books because other people see it and it gets recommended to people that bought it, etc. Amazon really works to promote your book once it's starting to sell. So you've got to give it that initial push, and then it'll get exposed to more new people.
So how would you, the problem with me is that my main audience is from my podcast and my website, which is about self-publishing and book marketing and things like that. And, I'm correcting this by writing a nonfiction book on those topics, kind of to leverage that. But my main books, and I'm mainly a fiction author, for which I have no audience at this stage. So how would you recommend to do a 3 days promotion, or the deals 99-cent deals days, which is kind of better? I mean,
they're both, honestly, either one would work fine, but I think the idea here is you're saying, how do you get it back? How do you get some new momentum going? Well, pick one of those. I'd say do a free day and then market it, but not just make it for free and then leave it alone, but really build an event around it. Like when I relaunched my book before, not yesterday for Buck Books, but 2 months ago, I created a whole event. I called it Lifestyle Entrepreneur Day. And, I said, here's the calendar of events for Lifestyle Entrepreneur Day. All day long, the book is free. Go grab a copy. You're welcome. And at 10 a.m. I'm going to do a Google Hangout, and you're welcome to join. And I interviewed some other people, and just made it a big experience where you could come and learn from people that were in the book, etc. And then I taught a live course in the evening. So basically, it was a whole day of events focused around the book, all of which were free. And the result was, I think maybe 800, 900 or more book downloads just in that one day. And then that turned into hundreds of new people on my email list. And eventually some of those people became clients, etc. So as long as it's not just about, hey, let's set the book for free and then see what happens, but like actually planning out something that your readers will like. Maybe it's, there's so many opportunities. For fiction, I'd have to get a little creative, but I'm sure, I mean, fiction, by the way, is the best-selling category of all time. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the overall best-selling list on all of Amazon, it's like 9 out of 10 books are, fiction or novels or romance novels. There's not business books and stuff like that on the top seller lists. It's more fiction books. So
Yeah.
I mean, fiction authors actually have a bigger potential market, even though business authors and business books speak to a very specific group.
Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of opportunity there.
Okay, if I try to kind of wrap up the whole conversation we were having, can I kind of conclude that one has to write a good quality book and have all the elements, good quality elements in place, like the book cover and edited text, etc., etc. One has to hustle, and one doesn't have to shy away from marketing and keep on ongoing marketing efforts once the book is out.
Yeah, those are all true. And, I'd add to that to actually embrace the marketing, and don't think of it as marketing. Think of it as sharing the ideas in your book with people in different ways. So you can make this as fun and creative and interactive as you want, right? It doesn't have to be just, hey, buy my book. Hey, buy my book. It's like, hey, let's do an event and we'll do live Q&A, or hey, let me teach on these topics, or I'll interview these people that I wrote about in the book. There's so many different ways to do something that accomplishes the goals of marketing, but is actually a fun experience that people want to be a part of. That's the best marketing of all. So that'd be my final thought.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming over. I think we had quite a fruitful conversation over here. So I hope it helps the people who listened. And I wish you success with your upcoming book.
Thanks so much, Ani. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Well, that was it for today. Please don't forget to hop on and register to the webinar I spoke about so much in the very beginning. So a really great webinar to help you discover how to use the power of podcasting to gain an audience, get in front of avid readers, and sell more books in just 7 easy steps. Please go to www.anialexander.com/webinar, anialexander.com/webinar. Well, and I hope that you will be having a productive week, and you will keep writing, and hopefully someday, very soon, you will email me and let me know about the book that you will be publishing. Are you struggling trying to figure out how to sell copies of your book? Especially the first 100 copies? The Author Marketing Institute is offering access to their latest free video course called Selling the First 100 Copies of Your Book. This is the course everyone should have when they started publishing. It goes through all the basics, from starting a mailing list to experimenting with different prices. If you follow the instructions in this course, you should be primed and ready to sell your first 100 copies, if not many more. Sign up for free at www.authormarketinginstitute.com.